Ernie, would you like to lead the pledge this evening?
Okay. Join me, won't you? I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'll take a motion to open the meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor? All right, so Ricky's not here. Let me shoot him a quick text and just see if he's coming. Okay, first up on the agenda is public comment. Is there anyone that has anything that they would like to bring to the select board's attention that will not be already taken up on another agenda item this evening? All right, seeing none, we'll move right on. Old business, we have the approval of the October 2020 select board minutes. Take a motion.
Make that motion.
Is there a second? I'll second it. All right. All those in favor? All right, the select board meeting minutes of October 20 are now open for discussion. All right, seeing no discussion. Ernie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
and Ricky?
Yes.
All right, 5 yeses. All right, the next item on the agenda is the board appointment for the Board of Parks and Recreation. I'll take a motion to table that to the next meeting.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor of tabling that item? Being 5-0 for that. Anthony,
Yes, ma'am.
normally when we have the junkyard and auto graveyard permit, we usually have someone available.
Are you talking about the applicant?
Yeah,
Okay, because Mr., I think it was Raymond Frappier, says he asked me if he needed to attend this. And I said, well, I think it's advisable. He says, well, I've never had to attend it before. And I said, well, if you're not there and they want you there, then we'll hold it off until the next meeting. But
yeah, we usually check in. I know you said Gary had a chance to go out and take a look, and there hadn't been any changes since last year,
correct.
correct? And
Usually we wait, we get a report from Gary. I mean, I don't think we've had the people in, maybe when they first applied.
right, we usually get a report from Gary, and usually there's an abutter that
Yes.
attends.
He did
Well,
not, last year, we didn't have him come in.
No, and I didn't think we did. I know we had tabled it for a second meeting, so that the abutter could join us.
And all the abutters have been notified of this meeting.
Okay, so we don't have anything from Gary in writing, but he did give a verbal confirmation that there was no changes.
That's correct.
Okay.
I'd make a motion.
Melanie, why have we jumped ahead 2 items?
Well, because what I was going to do was ask if there were folks here that were planning to talk on that, if we could move that agenda item up so that they weren't here through the library thing, but since no one is here, we can just keep it in that order. I had a little note to myself here. All right, so next up, we have the consideration of the updated library policy manual.
What are we doing on the junkyard permit?
We'll get to that one. Now we'll just keep it in the
Okay,
same order.
okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I was debating if we were going to move it ahead, but since there's nobody here that it's going to affect. we'll just keep it in our regular lineup. All right, so I will take a motion for the updated library policy.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Yep, I'll second it.
All right, the updated library policy is now open for discussion. Nice work.
Yes, thank you for all the work. Love
It is a lot of work. I had
it.
a
Having read the 2000 version and the 2020 version, I'm like, wow.
There were a lot of changes, yes.
You don't realize quite how outdated it was because I think our brain just goes, oh, I'm sure it's fine. And I could have sworn it had been updated in the last 20 years.
A few amendments here or there, but nothing substantial.
Well, this is substantial. So, and it feels a bit thicker, but I'm thinking some of that is because we have the old still in there. So I'm guessing it's going to get trimmed down.
Yes.
Did anyone have any items in this that they had any concerns about? Any questions?
I did, but I can't find it now.
I don't know. The policy I read through, all I saw was, it didn't tell me what the highlights, what the differences were on at least the copy I've got. All I've got, everything is in black and white, so.
Well, I sent out a couple of different versions, Dan. There was what you were looking at as the completed version, but had also sent out the red line version. Kathy's holding it up right there.
Right, the red line.
And then I also did send out the original version as well.
Came out today, Dan.
I saw both.
With
Okay.
the today.
Yeah, I sent it out after the fact, and then I resent that all again today.
Okay, because all I'm looking at is the stuff you sent out for the board meeting from last Thursday. It's the last thing I've seen.
Are there any changes between Thursday and today?
No, ma'am.
So I think it says red line version. It's not really red line, but if you look through it, Dan, there are like lines through what's going to be eliminated.
Yeah, on the copy I've got, there isn't.
So do you have then the original Belgrade Public Library? Does it say November of 2000 at the top?
Yeah, let me look. Scroll through it here on my iPad.
Maybe it's this one. This is the 2020.
That's the original version right there.
Yeah, this is 2020.
That's the new one.
The
Oh,
new
I'm
one-
sorry, the new one. Yeah.
Yeah, see, all I've got on my version is the 2020, the new one. So it's not showing me what the changes are on the version I've got, so.
Hey, are you looking at the subsequent emails that I sent?
No, because I'd have to back out of the whole thing I'm looking at tonight's agenda and everything on my iPad.
Because it was so lengthy, I included those as separate documents in a separate email.
Yeah, see, somehow I missed that.
And that's the tricky part with Zoom.
Yeah, well, what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have you guys start printing all this stuff off and then I'll come over and pick up a packet. Because trying to look at stuff in multiple things, I'm missing stuff sometimes.
Okay, so let me ask a question. I have the red line version in front of me. If you are, Dan, I didn't mean to interrupt you. If you are done,
What's up?
all right. In the red line version, and these are not page numbers, but under library services policy, it says the library staff under A, C, or BC, the library staff will, and then there's a list of 4 or 5 items there. Are you with me?
Yes.
Okay. Number 3, it says offer unbiased materials that represent the realms of literature, art, science, government, and nature. And I'm assuming that that's not a complete list of all that you offer.
Correct.
So it might be better to state that because this statement sounds like you limit it to literature, art, science, government, and nature.
Okay.
Okay? And I'm, like I say, I know better than that. I know you offer much more beyond that. So I think that if people are looking for other items, you got to figure out how not to limit it. I guess you say you could do it including literature, art, science, government, and nature, but not limited to, or something.
I think that would work just fine.
You know,
Or that are representative of the realms of literature, art, sciences, government, and nature, are representative of, but not limited to.
Mhm.
yeah, just something like that, so that people understand that there's much more to the library than just those 4 topics
Yes, I can go ahead and make that edit real
or
quick.
5 topics. Other than that, I thought a lot of editing went on. Nice job.
Yes.
Nice job. Yeah. But I read through it and that was really all that I could see.
Well, if that's the only edit, then I'm happy.
Oh, that's only for me. I don't know. About the rest.
You hang on. It seemed like I had one other thing there. Oh, yes.
I actually had a larger question. And I guess that there is and you'll have to educate me. I'm assuming that there is a large body somewhere in the United States and usually based in Washington that dictates what libraries in the United States do.
Yes, that would be the American Library Association.
Okay, so somewhere in here, it ought to say, and I didn't find it, but it ought to say, we follow the standards and auspices of the American Library Association in our local library, you know, something like that, that indicates that you are aware of that organization and that you do follow its dictates. Because you've noted in other places where you follow American Disabilities Act and, you know, various other large organizations, excuse me.
Mhm.
But your governing body really is the American Library Association. So
Yes, under, let's see here, there's a portion under the collection policy in section B, we denote that we support the Library Bill of Rights, the freedom to view, and the freedom to read documents.
yeah, I did read that. I did.
Yeah,
read
adopted by the American Library Association. And that is essentially our endorsement of the American Library Association and how they dictate libraries.
Thank you. So noted. Thank you for pointing that out to me,
Of course.
because I did see the other listings.
Now, one of the questions that I had, Megan, and of course, you probably remember that this came up last year, where there was a donation of religious materials.
Yes.
And I didn't notice under item donations that had been identified as something that was accepted or something that would not be accepted or would be accepted, but only with the following caveats.
Mhm.
Is there a reason?
Well, the library, especially the policies that we have adopted under the American Library Association, we don't deny materials specifically based on content, including religious content. So if someone donated the Bible, we wouldn't turn it away because it's a Bible. If someone donated the Quran, we wouldn't turn it away because it's a Quran. We would have to follow all of our other acquisition rules and policies, just like any other item.
So I thought how we had settled that down last year was that, how do I best phrase this? That if there was an item that was donated that was representative of one segment of society or one segment, that in order for us to include it in the collection, we would have to expand the collection to offer other representations of,
To be inclusive.
to be inclusive, right?
Mhm. Yeah, so we are actually getting together. I've been working with Barbara, and she has contacted some associates from Colby, and we are actually working on putting together an inclusive religious section in the library.
Nice, thank you.
Very good.
Because I think we were kind of like, did we have space for that?
Mhm. We have made space.
Okay. Because I remember we had somebody here who was like, oh, we have a 3-floor library and we have this great section. I'm like, have you seen our library? It's not 3 floors. Okay, so that was one thing. And I have to say, and I feel a little bit clueless, I didn't know that we had a telescope that could be used.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah, we had a very wonderful telescope program last summer and everybody really loved it. So once COVID is over, we hope to do something similar.
Nice. Fantastic. All right, well, I'm done picking it apart. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to say?
If I may, I would just like to thank the Library Board of Trustees. They spent many, many months poring over this and working it and revising it. And Kathy, I guess, mentioned how well edited it was. Maureen Milliken, who is, golly, what's the best word, Megan?
She's fab.
She's fab.
She's
But boy, is she tough when it comes to edit. Very exacting. That's the word that I'm looking for. Exacting when it comes to her editing and all. And so I think they put together a great document. And I attended a couple of their meetings where they were wrangling over this, and they really spent a lot of sweat equity on this policy. And so we've got several members of the board here this evening. I just want to thank them for all the hard work they poured into that.
Kudos.
Yeah, thank you all. And like I say, honestly, until I read through it, I didn't realize quite how outdated it was. So thanks for picking up on that. We're on like 2030 and all right, well, if there's no further discussion, I will take a motion for the adoption of the,
Melanie,
yes, ma'am.
does that mean that we'll be able to put our Christmas books in for the little children this year?
No. What that means is that the library is working on a religious section that will be inclusive. There's no guarantee that that will be up and running by December.
Oh, they're working on it, you're saying.
They're working on it.
Gotcha, okay.
All right. Does anyone else have anything before I move on? All right. So
Did we vote on it? Are we supposed-
that's what I was waiting on. So the next step is I will take a motion for the adoption of the Belgrade Public Library Policy Manual 2020.
I'll make that
So
motion.
moved.
All right, so there was a motion and a second. Kathy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dan, how do you vote?
Come back to me. I'm still reading through the corrections.
Okay, I'll do this slowly. Ricky, how do you vote?
Yes.
It's really long, Dan. So.
I'm most of the way through it, so.
All right, Dan is a speed reader. We did not know that about him. Ernie, how do you vote?
Yes,
Yes. Ricky, how do you vote?
you already voted.
Yes, again.
I thought, I was like, I think I missed somebody, but I'm not sure. All right, 4 yeses. Dan, are you ready for us to come back to you?
Yeah, I've got through most of it. I guess I'll vote yes.
All right, 5 yeses. All right, next up on the agenda, we have the consideration of the transfer station paving bids.
Who's presenting that?
Well, I suppose I am. I was hoping Kenny would be here, but he's having some internet difficulties. And really nothing has changed since what when we last talked. As we had hoped and suspected, Dan mentioned that there was a portion of the map that wasn't included in the RFP, and that was simply an oversight, sort of a typo. They did mean to include that area in their bid. So the price has not changed. Bono and Son excavation of Skowhegan still has the low bid at $55,519 of the 4 complete bids that we received. And I've also included there the 3 references that we checked with, most notably the road commissioner in Skowhegan. They've used Bono for 3 different projects, and they said we would not be disappointed if we use them for our paving project.
I
like it.
make a motion that do we have to vote to accept this bid? Or it was recommended by the committee, was it not?
Yes.
It was.
That we approve the recommendation. My motion is that we accept the recommendation of the Transfer Station and Recycling Committee and accept the bid that Bono presented.
I'll second that.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none. Ernie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dan, how do you vote?
Yes.
Kathy, how do you vote?
Yes,
Ricky, how do you vote?
Yes,
5 yeses. And if the weather stays like this, they may actually get this done this
Right.
year.
Don't hold your breath.
I'm holding my breath and I had the windows open today.
Sure.
All right. So next up on the agenda is the public hearing and the consideration of the auto graveyard permit renewals. So doing this in the middle, do we need to exit the select board meeting, enter the public hearing, take care of the auto graveyard permit, exit the public hearing, and then re-enter the select board meeting, correct?
remember doing a public hearing on these.
We usually do a
The
public.
new one, if it's a new one, you have to, but when it's you're renewing it, I don't think you have to. I don't know doing it, but maybe, I may be wrong.
well, I don't know one way or the other. I only know that we did not do it last year when he renewed. And I can't, for the life of me, think why we should do it this year when he renews.
I don't think we ever have unless it's a new application for the public hearing.
Okay, so we'll just move forward then with the select board. And if Anthony, you find out that we're wrong and we have to do a public hearing, I would love to do it at the beginning of the
Yeah,
next meeting.
I think, okay, and I think Mary is tuned in. She might be able to lend some clarity because I had that same question about whether or not we needed a public hearing. I went to the law, and unless I was misreading the law, I think it did require a public hearing. Mary, are you there?
I don't see her.
Well, there
She's
she is.
sitting under planning board. She's
I'm
she's
here.
incognito.
Can you hear me?
Hiding.
Yes, we can hear you, Mary.
You can hear me?
Yes.
It's my understanding that you have to do the public hearing for the purpose of, because of the abutters. And so when I went back and I looked through the law, it clearly said that you had to do the public hearing. We no longer have to advertise it in the newspaper as we used to do, but I know it wasn't done last year because I looked at what was done and then I went back to the law and it said a public hearing was to be held. So,
'Cause I thought we had to with on the junkyards and that, and so that there was space for public comment if need be.
right. You no longer have to do a public hearing for a liquor license, for renewal liquor licenses. You no longer have to do those, but for the junkyard, it was pretty clear that you still had to do it.
Okay, so what do? We put this off until next time?
Nope. What
No.
I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a motion that we exit the select board meeting.
Okay,
Is there a second on that motion?
sure, I'll second.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? All right, 5-4. I'm now gonna make a motion that we enter the public hearing for the discussion, for the consideration of the auto graveyard and junkyard permit renewal.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? All right, so the public hearing is now open for the consideration of the auto graveyard and junkyard permit. At- Hang on Just a moment. Okay, located at map 10, lot 22D in Belgrade, Maine. Auto graveyard operated by Francis and Raymond Frappier. Is there any discussion?
My piece of paper says lot 23D, not 22D.
So I have, oh, wait, hold on. So this is actually, is it two applications? One for 22D and the second at 32 Dustin Drive?
Yes,
Think you're
ma'am.
talking
There are,
about two different ones.
Okay, so we need
yeah,
to take.
there are two permits. So Dan is correct on, when you look at Francis Frappier's application, on question number 1, he says lot 23D. On the second page, he filled it in as 22E actually. But when you look at the map that's behind that, that little, I don't know if yours is shaded or not, but it is clearly lot 22D.
Okay. So it's wrong on the application.
It is.
Okay, so we'll take first Francis Frappier's auto graveyard application at map 10 lot 22D. And did Gary inspect both?
He did.
Okay. So I guess in the future, if Gary could jot a note that we could enter into the meeting minutes, that would be helpful.
Okay.
May I ask a question?
Absolutely.
If the application has the wrong lot number on it, can we act on it? Don't we need to have a correct application in order to act on it? I mean, it very clearly says 23D, and
So,
if we approve 23D and he wants us to approve 22D, then, or 32 doesn't, then it seems to me that we're not doing due diligence.
so may I say something that when they came in with the application, we actually went to the map and we looked at the map and recognized that it was the wrong one. We had put their property where they live. And so we changed the first page, not realizing it was listed on the second page, but it is 22D for Francis.
Okay, so that was changed in the town office.
It was changed in the town office, correct. And Gary was standing there when we went and we looked at the map.
And somebody, okay, so the application that we have in front of us, not the correct number.
The 22D is, the second page should have been changed as well. Is it the second page that has the 23E on it?
Well, there's 23D on one of them, and the other one that I have is 22E.
And 22E was the one that was initialized.
RJR.
I think I gotta go with Kathy on this one. And I would take a motion to table Francis Frappier's.
I think you gotta do that after you get out of your public hearing.
Oh, that's true. Does that sound right to folks that we would table that until the next meeting and just get an updated application?
One that's correct. I'd much rather vote on one that's correct.
That's fine.
All right, can we act on Raymond Frappier's auto graveyard application at 32 Dustin Drive? Let's take a look at that.
Well, that application seems to be in order, at least from what I can see. except it doesn't have a
Well,
tax.
it's not signed. The tax map number's not on there.
Right, right. I think it's sloppy to say the least. It's not really correct without that information on it.
So Anthony, Raymond came in and signed his application. We called him. You had scanned in the application that was not signed, but he came in afterwards.
It still doesn't,
Pardon me, I was muted. We were trying to get the applicant or the packet to you guys, and didn't know exactly when he was going to come in to sign the application. So he did actually come in afterwards and sign this.
well, I don't have a signed copy. And there's no tax map number and no lot number on it. Just the street address.
So I think at this point, I would take a motion to close the public hearing.
So be it.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor of closing the public hearing? All right, 5-4. I'm going to make a motion to reopen the select board meeting.
Second.
Was it second? Okay. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, I'm further going to make an application. I'm going to make a motion that we table the public hearing on both map 10 lot 22D operated by Francis Frappier and 32 Dustin Drive operated by Raymond Frappier to our next select board meeting.
And they're gonna be the first thing, not during the
Yeah.
meeting.
Yep, so I would like that public hearing right at 6:30 at the beginning of the meeting, if possible. Is there a second on the tabling?
Second.
Yes.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing none. Ernie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dan, how do you vote?
Yes.
Kathy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ricky, how do you vote?
Yes.
All right, 5 yeses. So we will table the public hearing to the next meeting on November 24th. All right, next up on the agenda is the consideration of the invoices for the Lakes Fire Station well repair. And I will take a motion to open that item.
So be it.
There a
Second.
second? Second by Dan. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4. All right, that item agenda is open for discussion. So Anthony, do you want to take the lead on this one?
Certainly. So we had to make an emergency repair to restore electrical power to the well at the Lakes Fire Station. We had 3 local contractors that were involved in that work. It was a pretty big job, and we at the time, though, we weren't anticipating that the bills would come in as they did, but it's nearly $8,400 worth of cost. And so at the moment, we have about $2,900 unexpended in the Lakes Fire Department maintenance budget. We've got about $6,200 unexpended overall in the Lakes facilities maintenance budget. But we have about $69,000 unexpended in the facility maintenance budget. So we've got the money to spend it regardless of whether we spend it out of the operating budget or capital reserve. And so the way I see it, we have 3 options. And option 1 would be that we overrun the Lakes Fire Department line item. We would be in no danger at all of overspending the overall facility maintenance budget, which is that bottom line departmental budget that the voters actually approve. That's the option that I would recommend, given that we've got ample funds to pay for that out of the operating budget. If you see it differently, however, we could deplete the fire department maintenance budget and then pay the balance out of one of the fire department's capital reserves. We have about $96,000 in the equipment reserve and about $130,000 in the building reserve. Of course, that building reserve is meant to try to build a kitty to build our new central fire station. Or option 3 is we could pay the entire amount out of one of the fire department capital reserves. So unless you guys have a different idea, those are the options as I see them.
So my understanding is when we have a capital reserve set up for a specific thing, like equipment for the fire department, that we can't tap into that kitty if there's an unexpected expenditure that needs to happen. Am I correct with that?
That's what I was always under the impression. Like the one for the new fire station is specifically for the new fire station.
Well,
I'm not-
since it just, the title of it is just fire department building capital reserve, I didn't know if we could use that for some other building need, which you could consider this, I suppose.
Well, and I don't think that we can, because I think when we set up the capital reserve, it was very specific that there was, I think it was 50,000 that we started as seed money in that capital reserve, and the intention was to add to that. So that, and originally it was to try to find a piece of property potentially for building the new fire station. So there were some guidelines around the capital reserves that were set up.
Well, then maybe that makes the decision easy then. I mean, maybe we just pay it out of the operating budget for the facility maintenance budget. But because of the amount of this, I wanted to bring this to you guys for your express consideration.
Now, the facilities maintenance budget, let me just ask one more question. I know we shuffled some things around in the budget last year, and is personnel also part of that facilities maintenance budget?
Correct.
So,
We're not going to spend $69,000 on personnel in the next six or 7 weeks, though.
Why don't we just pay what the fire department has in their building maintenance and then make up the rest out of the regular facility maintenance?
It's 6 to 1, half dozen to the other. It's just a matter of accounting.
Yeah. Because I mean, what's going to happen is if we take it all out of facilities maintenance and you have some money left in the fire department, rather than taking that and rolling it over as unexpended funds, if we have expenditures, we ought to take them out of that budget.
No, well, if there are any unexpended funds in the facility maintenance budget, even if it were earmarked for the fire department, that would roll over into the undesignated fund as opposed to a fire capital reserve.
Isn't that one department though that you can overdraft? Because that's what we do at March town meeting, we cover it then. So you can take, that's one of the departments, one of the few that you can overdraft.
Yeah, but again, Rick, we're not going to be in any danger of overdrafting the facility maintenance budget, even with a $8,400 bill.
Take it out of there. All right with me. I'll make that motion if you want it.
Second that.
okay, so Ricky's motion is to take the entire amount out of the facilities maintenance budget, leave the money in the fire department maintenance budget. And
Well, understand that the fire department's maintenance budget is simply a line item within the facility maintenance budget. So again, it's simply a matter of accounting. What we'll do is we will overdraft that line item just so that there is clear accounting that that's where the expense was, and it will just be covered by the entire departmental budget.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
That's
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
so technically, so Ricky, what you're saying then is option 2. So not option 1 where we just take it out of facilities maintenance. Anything that's left in the fire department budget would roll to undesignated. So that 2894 would still sit in the fire department's line item? Or are you saying deplete that fire department's line item, overdraft it, take any remaining balance from facilities maintenance budget overall? So option 2.
I didn't look at that, but yes, that's the way we should be doing it.
Okay. So Ricky's motion is option 2.
Take it in one pocket, putting it in the other, but it's fine. I mean,
Right.
Yeah, it is just a matter of bookkeeping. I mean,
That's right.
It doesn't have any financial implications, if you will.
It doesn't, but as we move forward to the budget for next year, we may want to bump a little extra into the fire department's maintenance budget for unseen emergencies or, unforeseen. So Ernie, do you still second that motion from Ricky?
That's option 2. Is that what you're saying?
Option 2, depleting the fire department maintenance budget of $28.94 and taking the overall, the extra of $6,231 from,
Yeah, that option 2 isn't, that option 2 isn't even close to what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
We're
understand.
talking about a totally different option out of those 3.
Yeah.
So I understand what you guys are talking about. You're talking about option 1, we will overrun the Lakes Fire Department facility maintenance budget with the balance being paid from the total departmental budget.
Correct.
That's the one.
so option 4.
So is that option 1 or?
No, it's technically
Well,
option
we
4.
we made a new option.
Right.
Options are good. Options are good.
All right. So Rick, do you want to restate your motion?
I don't know what I'm doing now. I gotta go, I've been looking for it again.
Why
All I
start
know
now?
is Pay the bill. However, we gotta do it.
All right, so we have a motion and a second on the floor. Ernie, will you rescind your second, please? Ernie? Ernie?
Yes. Yeah, I know. I'm just looking at it on my paper here. Hang on a minute. I just was trying to be informed here. Option 1, option 2, option 3. So option 4 is different than option 1. How?
Well, I'll tell you in just a sec. So
And
if we
stated
rescind those, we can put a new motion on the table.
That'd be a good idea.
Dan, why don't you put the motion on the table?
Well,
All right.
hold on.
Well,
First,
I'll-
we have to rescind these two.
yeah, get those
We have to do
rescinded.
A new motion.
I'm rescinding mine.
Okay, so the first one's gone. Ernie, you're off the hook.
Okay.
Okay, so
make-
now,
Make a motion of paying it out of the fire department's maintenance budget with anything that's remaining coming out of facilities maintenance budget.
I will second that.
All right. That makes sense. I mean, it's really not much different than option 1. It's just
No.
Please don't
a
go there.
bookkeeping item. So let's
It's fine. Let's do it.
do it. Pay
Don't
it.
go there.
All right, so Kat, is there any further discussion?
No,
Okay, seeing none. Kathy, what's your pleasure?
Yes.
All right, Dan, what's your pleasure?
Yes.
Ernie, what's your pleasure?
Yes.
All right, Ricky?
yes.
Yes. All right, 5 yeses.
Amen.
Now do you see, Anthony, why I thought we should present all the options?
Mhm.
If nothing else. All right, next up on the agenda is the discussion and consideration of salt well contamination developments. So we had a meeting, and then after the meeting, we did a test at the Pooler property, and now we have some updated information. So I told Anthony that I wanted to keep it on the agenda so that the board is fully informed of what we've been attempting to do and where we stand now. So Anthony, Jack, Dan. Jack, do you want to take the lead on this? I don't think you've done it previously.
You're
Can't-
muted.
Get on mute, Jack.
Jack, can you unmute yourself? There
Okay,
you are.
There you go.
my understanding is that Anthony met with the owner, Mr. Poole, and a representative of the state, and
Yeah, that's a good thing.
they
But how do I,
determined-
if I need to speak, how do I do that?
that the well up in the Poole's place is salty and it's 90-some feet deep. Is that correct? And that would appear to tell me at least that drilling a shallow well is probably not going to solve the problem. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, that is the opinion of the hydrogeologist, Dwight Dowdy too. You know, we anticipated, I guess sort of guessed, that Mr. Pooler's well would be a bedrock well, and that we'd be able to go shallow and hit good water. But when they went out there and measured it, as Jack said, it's only about 90 feet deep. So it does not seem to be, his property does not seem to be a good candidate for a shallow gravel well. You know, further down the hill, there's the Burgess place, and they have a shallow well and a deep well, and both of those are contaminated. So it looks like our options are going to be more limiting than what we had hoped. And so we are all scheduled to meet on Thursday.
So what we were trying to do was, we had discussed drilling a test well at the town maintenance garage with the intention of, if we were to be able to reach potable water on town property, then could we tee off from that well and perhaps take care of at least one other property in that area. So in conversations with DOT, they really wanted us to try to move forward on at least one property. If Mr. Pooler's well had levels that were acceptable, then the discussion would be whether he was comfortable with us teeing off from his well, so that that one well could take care of his property and the Burgess property that is adjacent. Now we're kind of back at ground zero, because what we were hoping was going to possibly be a solution where we could, you know, possibly branch out from this, drill wells, take care of, you know, the folks' issues. And even if we had to have some shared wells, what could we do with that? DOT is really for a public water supply, and it has not seemed like the best option to the folks on the Salt Well Contamination Committee for a whole host of reasons. You know, ongoing maintenance, additional cost for the town, the cost up front for a public water system. And in talking to the Maine Rural Water Association folks, there was not a whole lot of positive feedback that any of these public well or water supplies were sufficient or worked in the long term to take care of these situations. So we are diligently working on it, trying to come up with a long-term solution.
Yeah, and Melanie, just one point of clarification. I don't know that they that the Maine Rural Water Association questioned the efficacy of a rural water system. It's just the financial viability, and by that, what they mean is there's no way that ratepayers, you could charge a rate to ratepayers that would make it a self-sustaining operation, that it would require some sort of a government subsidy. And as you guys will remember, what they're wanting to do is the DOT would like to purchase or build the system totally at their cost of about $2 million, and then turn the keys over to us, and then we would operate the system. And by operating it, we would likely contract with someone to do the testing on and maintenance of the system.
And I still feel like, I'll grab you here in just one second, Bruce, that we don't have anything in writing from DOT that says, if you build it, they will come.
And you were right about that, Melanie. And when I spoke with Dwight the other day, he said, you know, if you, meaning the town, need that from us, we will craft it for you.
So because I have that little lingering fear in the back of my head that we're 50% on the hook, no matter what the decision is.
Right.
And
I think, you know, depending upon how the discussion goes on Thursday, we may ask them to draft such a document, and then we could have, you know, the town attorney review that for us. And so I think, you know, that's something that Dwight said that they would be willing to do.
Unfortunately, looking at what we got going on, our options have gone from here to about here. So we're getting to the point where it's getting closer to either rural water system, buying properties. So it doesn't look like we're going to end up with some wells at this point.
Right. Bruce, you had your hand up. One moment, Jack. Bruce?
Anybody have any idea how deep the well is at the DOT building?
I have no
I-
idea.
I don't recall, Bruce.
That water seems to be good, so it's the only reason I'm questioning that.
There's no doubt that it is good water. I mean, that well would in fact be the source well for a public water system. And it's a bit of an anomaly as to why the water that is good there when it's so close to the source of the contamination.
I still don't give up. It's a setback to know that a deep well on the Burgess property produced bad water. But I still don't totally give up on the concept of a deep well because there's evidence of deep wells in the area producing good water in the Lazy Beaver area, whatever it's called now, and in the deep well that the state put in that's now operational.
Yeah, one of the things
We have a deep well too. The history of it is it was drilled all summer with an old pounder, and it eventually broke through into a different stratum of water, and it filled up to within, say, 50 feet of the surface by going down about 300 feet. And we've had very good water ever since. Never had a problem in the 50 some years we've lived in there or heard of any before that, after that well was drilled. I would like to know if the well, deep well on the Burgess property, I think I heard, was drilled in such a way as it was isolated from contamination from higher level gravel based water, or whether it was sealed off in a way that produced only deep well water. Do we know that?
That would be my question, because that should be, if we're finding that the contamination's in the gravel part of it, and there should be a seal put down, a sleeve put down in that well to go down into the bedrock to seal off the gravel water source.
The idea is to reach a different stratum of water by going deep and sealing it off from the contaminated well up above.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that practice was followed in drilling that deep well down there.
So one of the I think alarming things that Dwight mentioned to me the other day is that the wells in the Pinewood subdivision, which are all 250 to 300 feet deep, they are not contaminated, yet they have salt in them at 100 parts per million. And Dwight says there's no reason that water in Maine should have that level of salt in it. And so, his concern is that as that salt plume moves through the geology, that eventually those deep wells across Route 8 and Route 11 may eventually be contaminated as well.
If that's the case, the DOT well is going to be in the same boat, so you're going to have no water source at that point.
Yeah, except I think, Bruce, the DOT well is testing below what the Pinewood, and maybe it's because it is slightly up gradient from where the salt piles were.
Right. I can just tell you, I just had a water test done for a customer on the Dunn Road, on the Dunn Road, midway of Dunn Road. I'm not going to say where it was, and they were 160 parts. So, and that's just, that's on the Dunn Road, so I don't know. I just don't know if that's, maybe they're getting contamination from the roads. I don't know, but I'm just throwing that out to you that there's a lot of wells in this area, Sydney, Belgrade, Rome, that are all in 150, 160 range on the salt right now. You know, and I think that's just naturally in the water, but I can't prove that because I'm not a geologist, but I just can tell you what water tests come back.
I have a question, and that is, I understand that Dwight is a hydrologist, and I'm sure that DOT has all sorts of resources, but what do we really know about the geology of the area in terms of, you know, I'm intrigued by Jack's question, but I'd also be interested to know what the geology, 'cause it's very stratified geology, if I remember correctly, from some classes at Colby College. So I'm sort of curious to know, that may explain why, a little bit more about why those Pinewood places have so much salt and maybe some of the others. I'm just very curious if a geologist has really been consulted about this particular area. Because there are,
So Dwight can offer, because he explained it to me and it was beyond my pay grade, but Dwight can explain it to the group. He says the geology of that area is really not terribly complicated, but I'll let him offer the details of that.
okay. It's just kind of a curious question because we've, as you know, been running around this question for at least 2-3 years, maybe more.
I don't know. I'd still like to drill a deep well up at the maintenance garage, reach straight down through on it, where it's nothing's been disturbed up there, and see what we come up with.
I would too.
The biggest thing is I think you're gonna have to sleeve, if you do like a 300-foot well, you're gonna have to sleeve it all the way down to like 200, 250 feet.
Mhm.
That way there, you only have that water underneath that, but you gotta be careful not to go too deep because you got that old ocean, it's pocket of water, it's down there at about 450 feet. So you got that, there's an area there that you gotta be in, and that, you know, I do believe that you gotta sleeve the wells down so far and seal them.
Mhm.
That's more something you'd have to talk to a well driller, you know, on that part of it. I just know that a lot of wells to get to, you know, in other towns or other areas to get salt out, that's what they're doing, is they're going down, you know, getting past the 200, 225 feet to seal it off.
So where do we go from here? What do we do?
Like, you know, like I said, we're going to meet on Thursday, the Saltwell group,
All right.
along with the DOT. And so I think we'll probably have an updated report for you next Tuesday.
Thank you.
Anthony, you had put the question out at one point on your listserv, correct? Like town managers. And we didn't get a lot of responses, right?
No, most of the responses that I got, they were able to resolve it with drilling a well, but you're talking about contamination that happened at one residence versus multiple properties.
And Pittston, I know they had, or probably still have, an ongoing issue with it. Do we know how Pittston ended up resolving?
I don't know that off the top of my head. It seems like I may have corresponded with him at one point, but I don't recall.
Yeah. All right. Next up on the agenda is the town warrant. I will take a motion to open that item. Ernie, I think, made the motion. He's quiet. Is there a second?
Yes.
All right, the town warrant. Anthony, do you want to do the lead on it?
Yes, ma'am. This is warrant number 147 in the amount of $649,745.37.
Right, is there any discussion on the warrant? All right, seeing none, we'll take a motion to approve the warrant.
Good, I guess.
All right. I'll second it. All right, is there any further discussion? Seeing none. Ernie, what's your pleasure? Ernie says yes. Kathy, how do you vote?
Yes.
All right, Dan,
Yes.
Ricky? All right, 5-4-0 against. All right, next up, we have the town manager's report.
Yeah, so I want to just highlight a couple of issues real quick. Lily has joined us. She's come up with a brainstorm to add a little sunshine to the winter and Christmas season. She has proposed building a temporary ice rink at the Center for All Seasons. This is something to be 20 by 40 foot. It would be built on the playground, is where she and Chris Dutil have sort of located a good spot for it. The construction of that and the maintenance would all be done in-house by the town staff, but she thought it would be fun to have a little something like that. And I just wanted to, as I did with the sledding hill, run that idea by you guys and see if that's something you can support, or if it gives you some heartburn, we might be able to work you through.
Okay, so I do have a little bit of heartburn.
Okay.
And my first question is why we would not just use the lake.
I'll let Lily answer that.
I feel like parents with younger kids would feel a little safer. It would also be a lot easier for us to maintain. The lake in front of us tends to get a lot of ridges. It's in a warm spot, so it's not always the deepest or thickest ice. And this we wouldn't need to have very deep, and it would be a lot safer for families.
Okay, second question, town liability.
That covers it, yeah.
So we do have liability insurance, and this would be like having playground equipment in that regard.
Okay, because my understanding is that if we did an ice thing on the lake, that there's no town liability. But if we build a structure, then do we become liable? Are we required to light it at nighttime? Are we required to have staff there to oversee a town-owned ice rink?
It would be similar to our lakefront, where it's skate at your own risk instead of swim at your own risk.
Yeah. And so, Melanie, these are questions I don't mind posing to MMA Legal. Ask them the same sort of questions about the sledding hill, and they didn't seem to have any heartburn over that. But I don't mind posing this question to MMA Legal, see if they think this raises any sort of undue risk for the town.
Okay, so I'd like the risk assessment done. I'd also like to see an actual breakdown of cost on what it would be to construct it. I know it says we're going to be doing this with town staff. Do we have staff that have nothing else on their agenda, that they have time to build an ice rink for us?
Chris and I have talked about it, and it should be a quick, easy setup. I have priced it out through Hammond's, and it should be like $285, but we are hoping they'll donate the materials. And, we'll let them put out a sign saying it's a Hammond Lumber ice rink. But it's pretty quick, easy setup. Maybe not even an afternoon. I could probably do it with Phil, but Chris will be the one helping.
Did you guys actually get a tape measure and measure this out? Because 20 by 40 isn't a very big ice rink.
Yeah, I didn't really want it to be like a hockey rink. I wanted it to be more family friendly, just something to get people outside and fun, a fun thing to do this winter.
Yeah, well, 20 foot's only about the length of a car.
These are little kids.
So that's
They've got
not
little
a
legs.
turn around, so that's why I was asking.
Yeah.
They're not hockey players. They're just little kids.
Who's gonna take care of it? Who's gonna maintain it? Put the water in, clean the snow off it every time it storms? Who's gonna,
Phil and I will.
and they're gonna use the water out of the well, is that correct, to flood it, or what are you gonna?
Either the well, or I don't know if Travis can do it or not. I hadn't asked him yet.
Okay, thank you.
I would support it. I think it's a very nice idea. And as long as it doesn't increase our liability and that sort of stuff. And I think if you're willing to take care of it and shovel it off and maintain it, like you say, 20 by 40 is not a very huge area. So
Right.
I
I'll come over and shovel for you.
think before we make any final decision on this, we need to get the information back from Anthony, from the MMA.
Yep.
Yeah, so I tell you what, why don't I put this as an agenda item on the on next Tuesday's meeting?
Yeah, so if we can do that, and I would actually like to see like a drawing. Here it is. This is what we're going to use for materials. This is how we're going to do this. And then we have all the information, and then we can decide yay or nay. I mean, I'm thinking of the one that was done down here on 135, and they had ice skates that folks could borrow and things like that. And I feel like, you know, not every kid has a set of ice skates. So, you know, there's other pieces that we might want to think about, a warming spot. You know, sometimes having a an ice rink that's available to the public entails some other stuff. Because it's not like I'm throwing one up at my house.
Right.
And I think if you're gonna build it, I think probably that basketball court's the best level spot to be dealing with it.
Yeah, that's maybe 20 by 20 there.
Is that really, that's.
Yeah, it's just like a, you know, shooting hoop spot, not like for games or anything.
Yeah, because I could have sworn that was bigger. I thought that was bigger than closer to 20 by 40.
Nope,
All right,
not
well,
quite.
we can measure it all out anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's it's a great idea. I just want to make sure that we cover all the bases. Especially
so-
liability.
Yeah, so I'll check on the liability, and Lily will bird dog all the rest.
All right, thank you for coming up with creative ways to get people outside.
I'm trying.
So otherwise, I mean, you guys all know this, but I feel compelled to gush over our staff and our election volunteers and the great job that they did on November 3rd. You know, I had someone on Sunday that I saw down at Day's store who asked me how the voting went. And I said, it was smooth. And it was because we had such great help processing absentee ballots and then taking care of stuff on election day. So, and special kudos to Mary Vogel, because not only did she coordinate all of that work, but she also got us a $5,000 grant to pay for all the additional cost of conducting an election in that way. So as I have encouraged you guys before, if you see any of those folks, please be sure and thank them, because it was just a great day for democracy here in Belgrade. I emailed you earlier today. Our new firefighter has been selected and has accepted the position, and she will start on November the 30th. And she's a Belgrade resident with an advanced EMT certification. So that's exciting all the way around. Want to encourage you to look at your schedules in early December. On Thursday evening, the budget committee will be meeting. And after that meeting, I think we'll be ready to have a budget workshop. So that's something we can discuss at next week's meeting, but just start looking at your schedules and thinking about what might be able to fit in with your schedules. I've anticipated that in December, we'd also be bringing back the proposed mooring ordinance. But we've already got that all ready, and the town attorney has signed off on it. So I'm going to bring that to you next week as well. And then as I emailed you guys a little earlier, there are two things I want to talk about that relate to winter time in the village. And one of them is a request that we've had from some folks to pay for the cost of the Christmas wreaths that go up on the lamppost in the village. It's about a $450 cost. The volunteers will do all of the work. This was proposed at our last budget committee meeting, and the budget committee wants to put this into the 2021 budget. So that'll be part of the proposed budget that you guys will eventually be talking about and considering. But this year, we do have funds available if you would allow those to be used either from your special project fund. There's more than $7,000 in that line item, or we didn't spend anything out of the community services for the typical community events, and that's in excess of $700 as well. So I'd be interested in your thoughts on that.
Now, the money in the community services is different than the money that we set aside to pay for sheriffs,
No, it's one and the same.
one and the same.
Are you doing it just in the lakes? Nothing else is going up any place in town?
Well, I mean, if you have suggestions about other places we can put them, I think that'd be great. And I forgot to mention the wreaths would also be created by a local nursery owner.
I'm in support of this. I'm also in support of looking for other places in town. I thought that maybe at the food pantry, we could put up a wreath. I don't know where else. I, listen to other people's suggestions.
Well, we
Yeah.
could do the North Belgrade
Firehouse.
sign.
I'm sorry?
We could do the North Belgrade sign where Judy Dameron usually, Judy Hall usually takes care of the flowers there.
Okay. I think,
Looking out for the whole town, not just Belgrade Lakes. We need to open up here a little bit. You want to keep the community together.
well, where else do you want to put them, Rick?
Well, I don't know, but I mean, I just don't think that we ought to be just putting them in one area. If you want to open a can of worms, go ahead, but you need to really think about this.
Well, let's just make a list of where we put wreaths up. I think wreaths are a very inexpensive way of making
Yeah,
making holidays seem friendlier and more open and that sort of thing. And as far as I'm concerned, you can put them up all over town.
And I do think, just to jump in here, but I think the food pantry, that's a wonderful idea. And if we wanted to put them up on the North Belgrade sign and maybe on each of the entryways into the town, the signs that Rhonda Adlam painted, I think that, that might be doable as well.
Maybe the firehouses,
Firehouses, town office.
town office. Yeah, it'd be nice to have them here, there, and everywhere.
Okay, Bruce, you had your hand up?
Yeah, is there any way they could be put on like Depot Road?
Sorry?
The Depot Road along the school down that area? Is there any way that can be done there or not? Because that's central main power poles that they'd have to go on.
Well, we put
I don't
one on
know.
the library and a couple on the school.
I don't know if, well, I think we'd have to ask the school. Probably
I
have
bet,
to.
I bet Mr. Gartley would let us do that.
I'm sure he would.
Well, I
Just
think he would, but I think we can't just slap it up there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ernie, did you have something to say?
Oh, can't hear you, Ernie.
You're muted.
Can't you hear me?
No, we got nothing. Is your volume up on your computer? I'm coming, Wen. Hang on.
Not me.
No, we can hear you a little bit now.
I can't.
Carry on.
Oh, there we go.
Where
We
do?
get you.
Can you hear me now? Oh, here we
Yeah.
go. All right, well, so, I mean, traditionally, lately, I mean, in the last year or two, they've been in the village. It's great to put them all over town if we want to, but the figure that Anthony spoke about, the 400 and some change, that's for the village. You want to add to that? We have the money to do it. I'm willing to agree to that for sure. Traditionally, have we put wreaths at fire stations or at the town office or at the library? I mean, we should. I mean, it's a great idea. Just when we start identifying, you know, a number of fire stations, town office, the library, probably we're talking about doubling that $400 figure if we're going to get into, you know, more wreaths to put around the town, which is great. We have the money to do it. We can. So.
And so how many wreaths does 450 cover?
So that's 40 plus. Oh, and Kathy Atkinson may want to weigh in here, but that's 40 plus wreaths.
And that's the number for the village at this point, I believe.
Yes, sir. That was the plan.
Go, Kathy.
Kathy has to unmute. There you go.
The other thing you have to consider with the cost is what was done last year, which was the first year with the new sidewalks. That was 41. But people, the cost for the wreaths was born last year, shared by the Friends of Belgrade Lakes Village for their, you know, to celebrate the completion of the sidewalks, and also money that was donated through the business group for Belgrade. The other things that were given, all of the bows were donated. So there are 41 bows that were donated. And there were bungee cords for the application on the lampposts. So it's not just the cost for this year and for next year, if you do the village, it's the cost of the wreaths. But if you expand it for all of these other great ideas, the cost has other incremental aspects to it.
Kathy, did you recycle
Plus,
the book?
one more thing. All of the labor last year was done by a very small group of about 4 or 5 people. And we came out, one person had a truck, somebody had gone and gotten the wreaths. The wreaths come from Bob Fisher on Route 8. He makes them, he provided them last year for $10 a wreath, which he's willing to do this year, which is a real bargain because it's for the town. But the labor was all gratis and people were happy to do that. We'll do it again this year for the village, but you know, I don't want to take, my husband and I were 2 of the people who worked, Carol Johnson, Diane Oliver, a few other, the Matsons, Phyllis and Lynn, but to take on hanging the wreaths in all of these places all over, I just can't take on all that. And certainly not as a volunteer thing. I can't speak for the other people. So great to expand this, but realize that you're changing it from a folks project to a much broader scope.
Okay, so it sounds to me like the question is, do we want to spend potentially double what is being talked about, the 400 and change? We're probably talking 800, somewhere in that ballpark. I'm guessing, I'm just throwing it out there. And then because as Kathy mentioned, we need bows for at least another dozen wreaths or more. I don't know. We need, you know, and I'm willing to volunteer to put the wreaths up at various places around town that we identify. But how do we go about identifying that? And just basically town property, or you know, we're going to put one at the transfer station, or
Yeah,
we should. Yes, of course. Yeah.
we should.
So, you know, where do we put it? Where, you know, on the door, whatever, you know, who's going to make those decisions? It's fine with me. Just tell me where they go and I'll hang them up. I'll find a way to hang them up. And we'll get some bows and they'll be real fine.
Well,
But,
I mean, I think I,
Once you start doing this, one thing to remember, just once you start doing this, then it's going to be expected every year to do it. So, I mean, we need to think about that as the budget committee stated to put that in the budget for the coming years as well.
well, and I also feel like, I mean, I hear what Ricky's saying. And if we're gonna ask all the townspeople to pitch in,
Oh, sure. Yeah.
and if we're
absolutely.
talking $900, it's not just Belgrade Lakes Village money, it's everybody. So if we're
Sure.
going to do it, it has to be inclusive for everybody,
Mhm.
period. So if we have to either not take this expense on this year, or if we want to look and do this differently next year, but if we're gonna ask, if we're gonna take money from everybody to do it, then it has to be something that everybody feels like they have a vested interest in. And I also feel like if you open it up to volunteers, that maybe we have a wreath making party at the Center for All Seasons. And we request volunteers and we pull together a volunteer thing to do it. We have a fantastic community. And if you give them a chance, 9 times out of 10, they'll step up. The problem is COVID. And how would you go about putting these wreaths all together in a way that's safe for everyone? So there's other little pieces to it that we would have to consider. But there's ample space at the Center for All Seasons where you could set up tables and you could possibly pull something together that is very whole community oriented, or the North Belgrade Community Center. It's not quite as big, but maybe we have 2 wreath stations.
I don't want to make wreaths. I want to buy them from this local person that wants to make them.
But I mean, putting the bows and stuff on them, because there usually is a little more entailed. Like, I know when I get the bows from the gymnastics people, I pay $7 a piece and I put my own stuff on.
You'll figure out how many wreaths you need to put up thither and yon. And I will donate my time and I will also purchase the bows.
So I told, why don't
I'll get you, Jack.
why don't I expense this out? Kathy, do you know when your wreath supplier would need to have an order in order to meet the order?
I know that Phyllis Matson already called and ordered the 41 for the village. And if that would go through, if it were approved tonight and all of that, then she was going to pick them up Thanksgiving, I think for the 27th of November. And then we were going to try and get them up right that weekend, as soon as Thanksgiving was over. So they'd be up for the beginning of December. So I'm sure Mr. Fisher is already planning, and he has to source all of those greens.
Yeah. So what if we came back to you next Tuesday with some suggested spots outside of the village where we could hang these, and we'll have some associated costs for the wreaths, the bows, and whatever mechanism would be used in order to hang them.
Well, remember, I have the 41 bows from last year. They've been in my garage loft since last year, along with the bungees for the 41.
Right.
I don't, that was the application to secure the wreaths to the lamppost in the village. I don't know how you would secure them in all of these other locations. They may or may not need bungees.
Right, but let's say, and understood, but let's say there are a dozen other places that we would like to put wreaths. You know, we'll be able to expense what the bows and the mechanisms for hanging them and the wreaths themselves would be, along with some suggested locations that we could bring back to you folks next Tuesday night.
I mean, I'll volunteer to help. If I put the wreaths up, though, they're probably going to be my height, just so you know. So
Put
we'd
it on
like
the
to,
back of the pickup truck.
exactly. You don't want to see me standing on the terrain. Jack, you had something?
Yeah, just hearing the conversation and speaking as just one member of the budget committee, I would suggest that we do consider in a somewhat at least expansive use of wreaths beyond just the Belgrade Lakes Village area this year, as has been discussed, and use that experience to build a budget for next year to put before the voters to see if the town wants to continue this, so
Right.
that we don't lose continuity of what's already been done by doing nothing this year, or just doing a limited program in Belgrade Lakes Village. But use the basis, use this year as an experiment to build a budget and then ask the town for the money to support that budget.
Thank you, Jack.
Melanie, why don't we just turn around, if we're gonna, if we're thinking we're gonna spend the money to do this, why don't we just have them order another 12? Just from counting up in my head, we could use at least another 12. That's $120 if we're getting them for $10 a piece. For the wreaths
I was
themselves.
thinking 20.
Yeah, well, I went North Belgrade Community Center, fire station, the sign at the intersection between 8 and 11, town office, library, depot station, transfer station, Lakes Fire Station, community center, downtown. You know, that's 9 or 10 right there.
Right.
So, I mean, if we got 12 more, I mean, we could call it good for this year. And if next year we have to add another 3 or 4, we could do it, but.
Why don't we brainstorm on this until next Tuesday? We only got a week away. And think about this.
Yeah.
Come up with a decent plan.
I don't know. Can you hear me? This is Diane Oliver. I'm sorry, I don't have a picture. I think that's a good idea, Rick. I just wish that you could come up with a number like Dan had, even if it's 12 or if it's 20, just to give Mr. Fisher time, you know, to get that. This is a lot. I mean, he does this at a, like Kathy said, at a very great price. You're not going to get that any better any place. You know, it is his livelihood too. We don't want to take too much time away from him from what he's trying to do for retail. So I would appreciate if you thought you could come up with a number that we come up with it tonight.
I think Diane's right. And I think some of those places, I like the way Dan enumerated all of those, but some of them, because they're big facilities like the community center and the town hall, you might even need 2 there, one on either side. So maybe if you're going to do it, maybe at least go for the 20.
I think I agree.
I'm fine. I'm good with that.
You know, and if we don't use the 20, donate them.
Give 'em
I
to-
think
Well,
so, you-
I'm sure we could use and we can find spots for.
I'm sure we can too.
So can I interject again? Can Kathy, you tell me, were the bows we had, were those something that we got at Longfellow's that maybe we could do again? So again, it keeps it in consistency.
Yes, I got them at Longfellow's. And
What-
they're nice, they're good quality, and they held up well, which is why we're able to get a second year out of the ones. They were taken down carefully, stored, so they weren't just thrown away. Same with the bungees.
So Kathy, a rough idea of how much the bows would be?
Oh, golly. I can't remember if I paid like per bow, like $250 or $350 a bow.
Okay, so if we figured $5 a bow.
Oh,
We-
no, they weren't 5.
No.
They were, let's say, around $4 a bow.
Yeah, we could figure 5 though, because if we have to get bungee cords or something else, it gives us
Right.
something to play with.
So is everybody comfortable with considering 20?
Yep.
Sure.
We can put one on every select board member's house if we have extras.
Sure.
So if we have extras, we can stick them up on the telephone poles by the cemetery.
Exactly. I was thinking the same thing, like maybe we need to, you know, do something else if we have some extras, so.
It's
Coming
fine.
in here, I am so pleased with what you've done, what you're thinking about. And I think also that during this year of COVID, when there's so few things and fewer parties and all this, I think that what you're doing is really going to be very meaningful and really help with the lightening spirits and making people feel better during the holiday season. So I thank you very much.
Yeah, I want to, I totally agree. I think it shows a sense of community and, I truly appreciate what you guys have talked about tonight. Thank you.
Now, is there anyone here who would be willing to take the lead to see if it's possible to get another 20 wreaths for that same time frame?
Oh yeah, I'll take care of that.
Okay.
And
Thank
I'll get in touch with Phyllis Matson. She's the contact with Mr. Fisher. I'll talk to her tomorrow. And then if it's not possible, I will get back to Anthony.
Perfect.
Thank you.
So do you guys want to put this in
I'll
form?
take care of the bows. I'm going down to Longfellows tomorrow anyway, so I'll inquire about the bows.
Well, but I think what we want to see if we want continuity, Kathy, can you get to the other Kathy? Like one of the
Yeah.
boats or
Yeah.
something, if we're looking to keep this uniform, let's
Right.
get
There's a
this
certain
one.
color that we used.
Well, just send me a picture, Kathy.
Will do.
Okay, so do you guys want to put this in the form of a motion or should we just carry on?
Well, I think at this point, we're gathering information if this is possible. And if it is, then I think we can put it on the next board meeting next week and then we can act on it. And
No, we'd have to order them like tomorrow. You gotta remember Thanksgiving's coming right up.
right, but what if we ask for 10, 20 more and he says can't do it?
And you just keep your money. I mean,
That's
or,
right.
or we look at Longfellows or something, but I am almost 100% positive that Mr. Fisher will make this work.
All right, so I guess then, so what are we thinking cost wise? We're thinking, say if we do 20 wreaths at $10 a piece, that's 200. And if we figure $5 a piece
That's another
for
100.
bows.
It's another 100. So an additional $300 to be safe.
So if we figure 457, what's our number on that?
Yeah,
So
it would be 750. And in fact, for community events this year, we budgeted 780. And of course, we're not going to end up using any of that. So
That's
the math-
where it'll come from.
Yeah, that's what I might suggest. I think the math kind of works out good in that regard.
Is everybody comfortable with that? I am.
I'm good.
So why don't I will make a motion that we use the monies to fund the wreath project out of the, what's the name of that little
It's the community events or
community events fund? And I would say for an amount not to exceed $780. So we may end up with an unexpected expenditure, say if we're gonna put it on the food pantry, if we need to purchase a wreath holder for the door, things like that. I mean, those are $1 a piece or $2, so we may have a couple little things in there that we want to make sure we could cover.
I'll second your motion.
All right, is there any more discussion? All right, seeing none. Dan, what's your pleasure?
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Ernie,
Yes.
Ricky.
Yes.
All right, 5 yeses.
All right. So there was one other thing that I wanted to raise with you guys. It was, what we might do this year in regards to plowing the sidewalks in the village. Not knowing what I didn't know last year, I wasn't anticipating it was going to be a problem. And every time I was down there, I ended up walking in the streets because the sidewalks were an ice flow. And so I've corresponded with the city manager in Hollowell because they have brick sidewalks as well as far as what they do. And he mentioned about a little riding snow blower. And so you apparently drive that over the initial snow, but then you come back with a smaller implement, a snow blower with rubber blades so it doesn't damage the bricks. And someone has volunteered or offered to donate that second piece of equipment with the rubber blades to the town. If we'll take care of the first piece of equipment, before I do any more legwork or research on this, I just wanted to see if this is something you guys are interested in order to try to keep the sidewalks clear this winter.
So I think this was something that we had discussed initially when we were first talking about doing the sidewalks down there and whose responsibility it was going to become to maintain them. And if we continue adding things to our facilities maintenance person's jobs, when do they run out of time?
Where's the budget on this? So like somebody's going to donate a piece of equipment. That's good. Is there another piece of equipment you're speaking of? And
yeah, and I don't know anything about the cost of that at all, Ernie. I just got an email back today from the city manager in Hollowell, and so I would have to follow up. And he offered to get me some more details about what's involved. With
I
that.
guess well, it makes sense for you to probably check on that, and then try to determine, which fund we might be able to spend from, if it's wise to do so. I'm in favor of it. Like, and I've even offered to do it, or actually I've been volunteered to do it because now I live in the village. But that could happen, I suppose, if it's God's will. So let me know.
I mean, if I may, there's a little more than that. What are you gonna do about sanding them? When they get icy? And do you realize how many trips you're gonna make up and down that sidewalk? Because that's a state road and they plow that 40 times a day when there's a storm. You can't just leave it. If it's a real nasty storm, it's gonna freeze in there, and then you're in trouble. I don't know. I think you're biting off of more than you can chew.
I'm not biting anything right now. I'm trying to take the board's temperature just to see if this is something I should even expend any time or energy investigating before I make that expenditure.
It's got to be if we're going to do this, as I mentioned in an email, that it's pretty much going to have to be a commercial sidewalk snowblower, like you see in the cities, which we could probably get a hold of, surplus, used, something like that. We're not talking a lot of sidewalk mileage here, but there's an expense to that. And then, as Ricky stated, if it gets incredibly icy, then somehow there's got to be some sort of sanding to it, potentially, but maybe not. Or maybe that should be left up to the landowners, where the sidewalk is in front of their house. I don't know. These are all topics we could, we've got to get to at some point. So and this was part of a parking ordinance issue that we started to consider before the sidewalks were even put in, and we knew after we tabled it, more or less, or till after the sidewalks were put in. Now they are put in, the job's finished, and here we are staring down the barrel of a winter where we've got to decide, do we do last year, which is really nothing, or do we do something? And so I guess it's wise to consider what the cost would be for a piece of machinery that could actually do the job. You're not just talking to a walk behind Arians here, snowblower. You're talking something that's can handle the furrow from the wing of a state snowplow that comes through a whole bunch. For 20 years, I've been the sexton at the church in the village, and I've fought with that furrow out in front of that church for all those years. And as Ricky said, if you leave it for any length of time, it freezes and becomes a real bugger. So there you go.
All right, Bruce, you had something, and then Jack.
My biggest thing is, and of course, I'm gonna rely back on Melanie, Dan, and Ricky, is when this project was all coming up, I believe this question had come up several times by taxpayers. Are we gonna have to maintain them sidewalks in the wintertime? If we do, what are we gonna do? The question was always asked, was always told, no, we don't have to maintain them sidewalks in the wintertime. We all know it's a big expense to maintain sidewalks in the wintertime.
Because I feel like if we clear them, we have to make them safe for passage.
Correct. And it's the taxpayers in the town were pretty much assured, at that time of the board at that time that, we were not going to be doing or have to do winter maintenance on them sidewalks. So I think if you guys going to think about doing winter maintenance, I think you need to take it back to the town, taxpayers, and have them vote on it, not just try to come up with money for this year and brainstorm it. I think you need to take it back to the voters.
Okay. Jack?
Yeah, in the same vein as Bruce said, I think that anything the town does and any procedures that we imply that we're going to follow needs to be on a foundation of what our legal responsibility is with those sidewalks. I think we have to start with that and then proceed with what we have to do from that. Whether it's, if we don't have to do anything, we can start that as a starting point for the discussion. If we do have to do something legally, then we have to start at that point for the discussion and the procedure. But we need to have the clear legal understanding that everybody understands. And we need to have a town policy to back up that legal position before we start getting into detail of what we're going to do.
Yeah, because it feels like we had this conversation. We had talked about like what Portland does, and it's what Hollowell does actually was one of them, Water Street in Augusta. And it is, if you own the property, it's your responsibility to keep it clear in front. Do
we have any contractual responsibility with the state for what's been put into it to build the sidewalks?
I guess, does that mean, Anthony, you should ask MMA about that? I guess start there, as Jack says, see what the bare minimum is, if there's any that we need to maintain for liability purposes, and come up with a plan, a potential plan of a budget for, what we might do. I mean, this is a, kind of a longer term idea. I mean, I'm somebody that potentially could help, do it down here, but I may not be here forever, and so who's going to do it long term? And as Melanie said, does this add to the workload of our staff, who are already, adding to their workload by, plowing the library and, things like that we've discussed before. So, I guess we start where the bare minimum is, come up with some sort of a cost that, we might have to look at. Then I guess we decide if we want to spend anything like that to do it, or if it's just something we don't want to do. I think last year the concept was, the businesses are largely closed, and so we just more or less did, after the Christmas stroll, we basically just didn't do it anymore. And maybe that's that certainly is an option. It's what we went with last year. So it's hard to say. Days is closed, after Thanksgiving into April. So there isn't that much action going on down here. So it's hard to say. These are all topics we could talk about, but starting, as Jack said, with what the bare minimum is, And then going from there, maybe we could talk some more about it and have something to actually vote on it or not for this year. But I like Bruce's point too, that, you know, we might come up with a plan for this year in some fashion to sort of try it and see what it entails, if and what it costs. But going forward year to year, I think we probably have to put this in front of the voters and say, we're going to spend X doing this, and do you want to do that? You know,
Right.
When I was on the board last, I was involved on that committee when they were doing the streetscape. And basically what the state told us, they said, if we put the sidewalks in, you are responsible, you're supposed to maintain them. And our response basically was, well, we'll do it if they make us. We're going to leave them there until somebody actually makes us do it. And that's where it kind of got left. And I'm not sure what happened after I left the board the last time, but that was kind of the discussion, because we didn't want to spend the money to maintain them, to try to have somebody go down there and maintain them all the time.
So I think, Anthony, is it possible that you can pull the contract or what we have for the state rules with that? If we can go back to that time frame. I mean, heaven help us if it was the time frame where all we had were audio minutes, because we may as well just throw it right out because we're never going to hear it.
Yeah, certainly. We'll go back and pull the contract and see if sidewalks are addressed in that.
Okay. All right, so I think at this point, we're gonna just hang on.
Yeah, and I think Jack's raised a good point. I'm curious myself now to see what sort of legal responsibility that a community has when it comes to winter maintenance of sidewalks, if any.
I agree with that. I think that we need to start with what is our legal responsibility. And I think that Ernie makes a good point too, and that is the fact that the town is pretty much shut down. So there's a part of me that says, so why do you shovel the sidewalks if nothing's going on downtown? And if you're in an urban environment, the businesses are responsible for their sidewalks in front of their business. You know, so I certainly feel that it's not tremendously clear as to whose responsibility is what. So it would be really nice to know legally where we stand.
And I make it to the rescue.
I guess I'll weigh in a little bit now. He was right. Deal is, we are responsible for the sidewalks. But the board decided not to do anything about it because it wasn't pushed into the corner yet. You're gonna find out, I'm sure, that the town is liable for those sidewalks. Have them, we gotta take care of them. We just decided not to. That was part of the discussion that the board had when the sidewalks were being built, that we wasn't gonna do anything. We looked at possibly having the people along that owns property along it, cleaning them off. I kind of fought that a lot. I mean, look at there's a lot of elderly people that live there. And they're not gonna go out and shovel. I mean, come on.
I don't want them to.
No, and that's right. So we just left it alone. I mean, and we didn't have any complaints on it. So until this came out this year.
Anthony, stop complaining.
Yeah, you got it?
Walk in the street, dude.
Put a
Get hit
vest
by
on.
a
We've been
car.
walking in the street for years. So
I'm not a streetwalker, okay?
don't go downtown. No.
Well, now that Days is going to be closed, I'm really sad by that, Diane, because that's when I go down. It's winter time.
But I mean, there are other people that aren't there all winter long. They're summer residents,
Right.
you know, And so that they're not even there.
That was that was discussed too. I mean, I don't know what the answer is.
I do not know what the answer is either. So let's.
It's
start-
not just
start with
shoveling the
lawyer.
sidewalk. It's not just shoveling the sidewalk. I mean, you've got more to it. I worked for the town of Oakland for years and we did sidewalks there and it is yep,
Yeah,
I'll leave it there.
yeah.
I'll bring some more information back for you guys next week.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank
And
you.
that concludes the town manager's report.
Very
All
good.
right. So folks, do you mind if we take a 2-minute break? My dog is fussing and I'm not really sure why. And then when we come back, well, what we can do is close the select board meeting, take a 2-minute break and then come back and open the executive session.
Okay. I make a motion, we adjourn the select board meeting.
Bye-bye.
All right, night, Jack. All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, 5, 4. See you guys in 2 minutes.
All righty.